Hi there folks, my name's NovaWin24 and welcome to another little review of a prepared product. So today we're having a look at what is quite possibly one of my favorite aircraft. I absolutely love the LearJet family, I really do, and I've been fortunate enough to review a couple of different variations of LearJet over the years on the channel, and this one here is possibly going to be my favorite. Bit of a spoiler alert here. So this is the Lionheart Creations LearJet 24 Bravo. So before we get too far into this review, I do want to say thank you very much to the team over at Lionheart Creations for providing me with the review copy of this aircraft. And we're here today in Prepared V4.5 and having a look at this aircraft. So, probably going to start off by saying that this Learjet here, Lionheart's had it out for a couple of years, but they rebooted it this year with the release and brought it in line with Prepared V4 to actually sort of give it full compatibility for that. So this is it was a good chance and a good opportunity to be able to delve into it and be able to grab it and be able to go for a bit of a fly and give it a bit of a review for you guys. So we're going to follow through our pretty much our standard format here. We're going to go through, do a bit of swirling around the airframe here on the ground. We're going to go through the startup procedure. We're going to go through a short flight, and then we're going to do a final review and doing a couple of things as we do along the way. Alright, so funnily enough, easily enough, the scenery that we are currently in is Flightbeam's Kaden. We're going to be here and we're going to be heading off to Orbix's Telluride very shortly as our destination, because let's face it, it's a popular place for all of these bizjets. Now, with that sort of setting out of the way, let's get into the actual sort of airframe itself. So as I said, looking into this, so I really like the Learjet. It's just, there's something striking about the shape of it, which just I just really enjoy. Just something really grabs me and just sort of harkens back to an age of aviation, sort of when, especially business aviation was very new, and just the sleek lines of it, but still sort of showing some form of harking back to the sort of straight wing era that it left behind. Very important. So, first I'm going to say, with the 3D model that the team at Lionheart have done, it's a beautifully highly detailed 3D model. Now you've got 2K textures throughout, a very high detailed set of 2K textures, 4K textures are included for this aircraft. So you've got beautiful detail, I mean, including sort of the actual sort of, fuel information on the wingtip there. It's on the wingtip fuel tanks, which was a fairly big innovation actually of the LearJet family. And it comes through here sort of very highly detailed, including with the turbojets that power the aircraft. We've got the removable flight covers on at the moment. We'll have a look at those with the covers off very shortly as well. Again, sort of all the beautiful high detailed resolution, high detailed modeling throughout, and beautiful managing set of reflections on the textures are done as well by the team. I've also got sort of light housings on the wingtips, all modelled accurately, and of course all various features of the aircraft are all modelled and accurate. So that's probably, as I said, it's one of the things about the Learjet. It's a very clean design, very clean aircraft, so there's not really a lot to show off, but I just wanted to show off that high resolution, the high detailed textures, high resolution textures, the attention to detail on the airframe and all the lights and all the other add-ons, etc. that there are on there as well. Alright, so enough of looking at the external model. Let's, although we probably will have a quick jump over once we disengage the sort of the ground equipment. We'll do that later. But for now, let's climb on board the aircraft and get familiar with the office and get ourselves underway. Alright, so here we are in the office of the Learjet 24B, and it's one of the things that I do like about this era of aircraft is that this is all pre-glass cockpit stuff. So for many of you younger aviators, you may not recognize what these things are. These are called steam gauges. Okay, alright, enough satire here. So these are your basic six, and this is it's very, as I said, it's one of the reasons why I like the early Learjets and why I like a lot of GA aircraft is that And it's also a challenge for developers sometimes to actually be able to make these sort of in-depth steam gauges, as much as the modern glass avionics take a lot of coding. These steam gauges take their fair bit of coding as well. So this LearJet very much harks from an era when it was very much the aviation world was in a transitional period, going from the sort of the stick and rudder sort of fly by the seat of pants days to this modern glass avionics, and it was very much this was very much the sort of that bridging gap of the jet age, where you were still flying by piston engine aircraft instruments, but with jet engines. And this aircraft really, I think, embodies that. The team at Lionheart really embodied that. So you've got your basic sort of steam-driven gauges here. Your altimeter's basic, and your autopilot is a very basic autopilot. Switches, vacuum gauges, all this kind of fun stuff. The only sort of modern avionics is an installation of a Bendix weather scan weather radar. Unfortunately, which is not operational in this add-on, unfortunately, but we'll show you something which is something you can change it to, which is useful in flight later on. So yeah, it captures that feel, and also just the way it's laid out as well. It actually feels like an older aircraft. It's been worn as well, and it's very much a in-use aircraft. And I also, side note, I really like the captain's snack pack, which is sort of like in the side here. I think that's a really cool neat little feature in addition. Alright, so a couple of things that I do want to show off. So I did mention before that we did sort of have the static animations, or the ground covers and all that kind of stuff on there at the moment. One of the cool things about this aircraft is there are a couple of neat little hidden switches and whatever. And there's two that I want to show you specifically. So the first one is how we can hide all that. So Carinado aircraft, Just Flight aircraft, they all include this in some way or some form or another. So Lionheart Creations is no exception. So we click this one here, that deactivates what we call park mode. So if we quickly jump to the outside of the aircraft now, there we go. You can now see that we actually have removed the ground, the chocks have been removed. They're removed before flight tags from around the nose. They've all been removed, and of course our removed before flight engine covers have been removed as well. And it gives us a chance to actually sort of see the inner workings, as it were, of the turbojets. They're actually sort of all here. And the fan blades at the front there. There you go. So yeah, so it's a neat little trick. It's kind of cool, kind of awesome. Nice, neat little way to hide it rather than putting it on a shift pop-up to actually sort of hide it in plain sight in the cockpit. So I think that's a really cool way of doing it. Right, cool. So yeah, so I wanted to show you that. The other thing that I want to show off as well, because I think this is a really nifty idea, and I think other developers should take note of this, is this here. So it's a hidden little bubble, is a hidden little button here on the combing called Help Bubbles. So this can be very useful for those who may not always read the manual, or if you're just simply not sure and you forget where something is. If you don't want to pull out your manual, you can actually click this button here, and it actually goes through various different important switches and parts of the aircraft, and especially either unique things to the aircraft, but also unique things to the model. So, for example, as you can see at the back here, we've just got a couple of empty seats there at the back. But if we click the button here, we now have a couple of passengers who've joined us. Rather dead-eye look to them, but there you go. So you can actually have your passengers join you if you want, just by clicking that button there. Also goes through a couple of other things like autopilot on off, a few other things as well, like and fuel cutoffs, how to start, and reference. You can sort of like reference your bubbles as well. So I think that's it's a really neat little way to actually sort of get stuff done, to be able to put it off. So just click any of the bubbles to be able to turn it off there. So yeah, as I said, I really wanted to show this off because I think this is a neat little feature that you can include to sort of help prompt you with stuff as well. Now I did mention before actually, and that reminds me, is that we'll show that a bit off later, probably when we're in flight we'll show that one off, but yes, there you go. Alright, cool. I think that's about it for on the ground. I think what we might do is we might get ourselves to start Okay, so I've got my parking brake set. Alright, now let's see. Now let's see if I remember my startup procedure. Alright, okay, so parking brake is on. Battery on. We've got volts. Okay. Beacon light on. Jet pumps on. Fuel pumps on. Control random. Cross flow open. Right. Hide pump on. And turbine 1 spinning up. Right, and turbine 2 spooling up. Switch to generator, alrighty. Okay, engine spooled up. Leaving it idle. Right, looking good. Okay, so we've got our annunciator panel up here, letting us know what we still need to do. So we'll put our inverters on, nav lights on, landing taxi lights on. Straight away till we get to runway. Okay. Start warning working. Now we've set this one to GPS. Now we're sort of cheating a little bit with that GPS. Alright, now we're going to go through. Now we can remove our cross flow now that our engines are up and running. So we've got plenty of fuel, using the right total there. Alright, next thing is our anti-ice. Now we are going through the mountains, so it's probably going to be a good idea to get our anti-ice going here. We've got our windshield anti-ice on. Pitot heat on, nacelle heat on. Alrighty. There we go, and we've got to set our cabin air pressure, of course. To auto and cabin air on. Okay. Alright, now we'll check with our passengers. They're all buttoned up back here, doors all closed off. Excellent. Okay. I think we're just about ready to taxi shortly. So what we'll do is we're going to be taxiing out. We're going to be departing on 17 right today. Now, I'll check my pre-taxi checklist is all complete. Looks like it is. Alright, now before we go any further, I'm going to quickly set our cruising altitude. We're going to be planning on cruising at 22,000 today, because we're heading west. West is even. Go. That's all done. Alright. Altimeter's set to local. Looking good. Alright, okay. So I think we are ready to do our taxi. Alright. Brakes off. throttles a little bit, and then start our taxi. That's it. The Caden Airport is that's the sort of the intro. Caden Airport. They were going to be departing from today's Flightbeam Studios 1. I really like it. It's a great airport. I've flown in and out of Denver a few times, and thoroughly enjoyed my experiences in Colorado. It's just such a beautiful state. It really is. As we make our way towards 17 right for our departure today. Pretty much the throttle's just at idle, and we're sort of pretty much just taxiing along. Occasional push of the throttles as we make the turns, otherwise, yeah, it pretty much just sits at idle and she rolls along. As we do our taxi, probably a good chance to also say that, yeah, so the AI traffic that you will be seeing throughout Caden here as we depart, and possibly at Telluride when we get there, I'm not sure if there's anything that serves as Telluride, is courtesy of Just Flight's AI traffic, their Traffic Global AI traffic add-on. And weather today comes to us from Active Sky Next with textures by Rex Textures, Rex Skyforce Textures. And that was one of those things that people often ask what sort of I use and things like that. So it's always good to. So I've started following my friend Belgio's habit of actually make sure that I let you guys know what it is that I'm using. She taxis fairly well, as I said, so pretty much just sort of sitting sort of at idle or just above idle as we trundle along here. She feels pretty good. As I said, a lot of the times a little bit loose sometimes the steering, but this one feels pretty good. Now, what I did mention before as we do our taxi along here, that's there is technically speaking, the aircraft that's modelled here did have one sort of computer instrument, which was the weather radar, but fortunately it's not active in this model. Instead, though, what there is this little button here. You can actually roll across it, and it actually then uses the default sort of GPS will get sort of put in its place, so you can actually see if you do have a GPS flight plan, or you can follow a GPS flight plan, and then there is the GPS nav switch down there as well. United on the ramp there. Alright, threshold there, so we'll take a left down here, we see the very distinctive sort of sail tops of Kaden over in the corner there, and this, as we turn on towards our runway. I'll do our 1 notch of flaps for takeoff. Short line. Alright, do a final check here. We need to have strobe lights on, don't need panels on. Alright, looking pretty good so far. And one of the things that I really love about the LearJet is its time to climb performance. So we're going to be shooting for about 22,000 as our cruising altitude today. We're going to do a non-standard departure, shall we say, because it's one of the things that I absolutely love about this aircraft is that, and it's been modeled accurately as well, is that the LearJet is known for the fact that it has one of the fastest, if not the fastest, civilian time to climb ratios and speeds, because basically it's a jet fighter that happens to be, a civilian biz jet, and it very much shows its pedigree. At least these early models of LearJet very much show their pedigree of their fighter pedigree in that. So we're going to have a bit of fun as we're going to do a circle climb out of our airport here before we get onto track, and we're going to experience some of the fun of actually doing that. So as we sit here at the on the numbers on 17 right, final check of everything. Everything's in the green, looking good. All right, let's get ourselves underway and have a little bit of fun as we climb out. Throttles up. Gear up, flaps up. As I said, like her climb ratio, like we're on 4,000 feet per minute and airspeed's still climbing. It is one of the things I absolutely love about Learjets, is that their performance is just insane. Like I'm even backing off the throttles and I'm still climbing, airspeed's still climbing, and we're pulling almost 6,000 feet per minute as our climb rate. So I'm actually going to turn left. We're going to circuit over the field as we head up. Like we're already about to pass through, we're almost about to pass through 10,000 feet. As I said, this is the thing, I just love this about the Learjet, and this is accurate sort of performance data as well. Like this is not like oversimmed or anything. Like the performance data of this aircraft is that it can do this. So because for the background, for those who may not know, and I always love highlighting this. So the history of the Learjet was actually, it came out of an unsuccessful program for the Swiss Air Force to actually operate, or actually design and build a jet fighter that was sort of post World War II. The jet fighter age was very much in its infancy, so they're looking at making this sort of fighter attack aircraft that had a straight wing, a jet engine, a single jet engine, a straight wing, but very, very high load capacity, very quick, very good performance at high altitude, and also very quick time to climb ratios, because there was operating in a Swiss airstrip, so they need to be able to operate essentially stall performance, while still also maintaining high weapons loads, good range, and good climb ratios. And The program ended up not succeeding. It didn't go very far. It obviously never went into production. Instead, the designer, one of the design team, was the owner, or then went on to found Gates LearJets, Gates Infinity and the Gates LearJets, and he basically just took the wing design and changed the fuselage on it, and actually then made his own bizjet, and basically made this sort of corporate jet idea, and that's how we came to get the LearJet. Was simply the fact that we got this very high performance airframe that was there, or very high performance wing, and all the data that had come from that, and was then merged with the idea of actually sort of, you know, providing a bizjet sort of idea, this burgeoning idea of a bizjet, to actually be able to operate and sort of bring. We've shot past our altitude here. We're going to have to trim down the altitude a little bit here. Yeah, to actually sort of to get this idea of a high performance aircraft, but do it for the this emerging sort of corporate market, and actually sort of have people be able to operate and be able to operate these, both in terms of flying executives around, but also making it more open for users to be able to get that. Now, interesting enough, what just happened there, that was Chase Plane. So I used Chase Plane as my camera tool, and because we're above 18,000, it just suddenly decided that it was going to switch into that. So probably see if we can turn that off for a second. There we go. Okay. I kind of would like to be able to fly this aircraft for a moment if we get into cruise. When we get back into cruise, then we'll look at resuming that that feature there. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to wind back that throttle a bit more. Okay, trim this aircraft out a bit. Okay, now we should be able to get down here. We get our autopilot. Gauge, altitude, nav. There we go. So it should just be correcting. So we're a little bit left of track at the moment. Get our altitude back up to stabilizing our 22,000 feet. Yes, as I said, it's one of those interesting sort of unique pieces of aviation history that, you know, the LearJet is only around because this fighter project actually failed, or rather, it didn't so much fail; it just never attracted any orders. So because of that, he bought the design, licensed the design, and actually went on to then create what is arguably the most successful range of bizjets in history. I'm pretty sure that we can say that. Right, okay, so now that we're at our cruise altitude, we'll have another quick look around the cockpit here. As I said, just pretty much not really much else to say. It is fairly basic in its terms. It's all very much steam gauges. So if you're looking for a challenge in terms of flying, this is probably a good one for you, because yeah, it's nothing like your modern glass avionics. There's no FMCs, there's no ACARs or any of that nonsense. This is all sort of, you fly it, you fly an aircraft how they're supposed to be flying, kind of thing. You fly an aircraft, not a computer. So that's probably a good way of actually putting it. So yeah, something to think about. We're at altitude. I can turn those standby pumps off now. Go. Okay. Alright, now, something else to remember as well is we make sure that you do have to, an interesting thing is you have to drain the tip tanks for this aircraft. This aircraft was not certified to land with fuel in the tip tanks. So you always have to make sure you drain your tip tanks, and if you don't drain them if you haven't used the fuel up by the time you go to land, you have to actually dump the fuel from your tip tanks. Otherwise, the aircraft is not rated to land with fuel in the tip tanks for safety reasons, funnily enough. So there you go. Anyway, alright, so now that we've settled that up, as I said, we'll have a quick look through. As I said, I always like attention to detail. So one of the things, again, that users would know from watching any of our reviews is I like little things like, you know, having our snacks and having the Starbucks coffee in there, in like the coins in there. In the co-pilots, sort of see we've got the iPad, we've got some charts, and we've got a map of the Nantucket area, Cape Cod area, which is always kind of cool. In the back here, as we saw before, we said we have our passengers at the back here. So the aircraft, this aircraft was designed to sort of have 4 to 6 passengers on board. Was not capable of single pilot ops, though, I don't believe. That's something that very much came later. Interestingly enough, though, the Lear 24 was the first of the LearJet family to be certified under the FAA's FAR 25 regulations, which meant that it had a higher gross or max takeoff weight than any other aircraft in its class. And max takeoff weights than that FAR 25 is pretty much normally reserved only for airliners, for jet airliners or anything with a large number of passengers on board. But it was also there to actually enable it to be able to carry a lot of freight, and it would also be able to carry the fuel for its long range. So one of the things it was known for, even though there were fairly thirsty turbojets that powered the Learjets, the early Learjets, these ones had the range of the fuel tanks to give it extended range. And became very popular with almost 300 of the LearJet 24 extended family being produced, with over 200 of them still flying to this day. So I think it's a pretty cool stat for that one. Anyway, yeah, so there we go. As I said, pretty much covers off the interior here. No other Easter eggs in the back here. So just kind of cool. Always good just being able to sort of sit back. And it was like when you got a modeled interior, so you can actually sort of, you know, look out the windows and actually, you know, see from a passenger's point of view and not just from the pilot's point of view, which is of course where we all want to be. Get the one of the things that separated funny enough, the LearJet 24 from its predecessor, the 23, was this extra window at the back here. So it actually had an extra window in the main cabin to actually, which was the easiest visual reference differentiator between the two aircraft in the family, was having this extra window just there on the jump seat. Alright, so with that, we'll probably have another quick look at the outside of the aircraft, and but as we then after that we might rejoin as we go and approach into Telluride. So just getting a chance to again admire those beautiful sleek lines of the LearJet. As I said, I really love the LearJet. It's just you know, and it's one of those things where I really appreciate what Lionheart have done. Like, Lionheart did a really, really beautiful, detailed job of this. Like a lot of the little, you know, quirks, and especially the sounds of that, of those two General Electric Collins turbojets actually sort of firing up and running. That's one of the most immersive things about it, and actually sort of the quirks of that. Visually, again, on the external model, very, very clean, very beautiful, really well done with the textures as well. Beautiful set of reflectivities and occlusions with the textures. No PBR textures for those who might be interested at the moment. They are not have not been implemented, and I'm not aware of any plans to add them in at this time. Otherwise, as I said, beautiful set, beautiful 3D model, just looks absolutely gorgeous, and just a very much, and also, again, nice little thing, you know, when you get the engines running, you do actually sort of get the sort of illuminated sort of, you know, flame of the turbojet actually running there as well. Because these are turbojets, not turbo fans as well, something to be aware of, these much older engines. Funnily enough, as we now switch over from the courtesy of Chaseplane, so I probably should turn that feature off next time I do a review video, probably. But anyway, I'll just remember to move the mouse every now and again. Apparently, moving the Xbox controller does not count as a mouse movement. But yeah, as I said, look really beautiful, really well done for this one. Interestingly, another interesting side fact for this one. So this, as far as I'm aware, is an early version of the 24B. Which was the second model of the 24. So the 24A was just a late model 23 modified. 24B was the first sort of new build to the new design to have greater internal fuel capacity, as to giving it the extra long range, also more uprated engines and giving higher takeoff or gross takeoff weight capabilities. With that as well comes sort of, there's an extended range, extended load capacity, which also made them very, very popular both in the US and around the world for aeromedical evacuation. So this one actually is, although the internals is not modeled for it, the external color scheme is actually used for an aeromedical evacuation service in the US, which is a role that they also serve in Australia as well, doing a lot of aeromedical evacuation work as well, which is very, very important life-saving work that they do in various countries around the world, so it's great to see. So again, one of those things is a very special place in my heart. My family's got a lot of connections with the aeromedical world, so it's always nice when I get a chance to show that off, so there you go. Alright, well I think that's pretty much just about sums it up. There is probably one more thing I probably do want to show off, which is we might just jump back into the cockpit for a second there. So there is also a realism mode, which does we can actually sort of switch over here, which basically means that some of the systems take longer to spin up and turn on. It means that the accuracy of your radios is not quite as accurate, or is more representative of their real-world counterparts. It also means that the spool-up times of the aircraft, so the aircraft engines, and their behaviour is a little bit more realistic as well. But otherwise, I found that even running without it, it still pretty much performs according to the manual, so I can't really, fault it too much. That's for sure. Other than that, yeah, I think that's pretty much better. Yeah, I think that's pretty much covers it off. So I really just like this aircraft. As I said, we're clipping along here at 304 knots indicated, and yeah. I love how zippy, like the LearJet is truly like it's just a zippy little airframe. Like they climb like a bat out of hell. They run like a bat out of hell on a stiff and oily rag on not exactly the most fuel efficient engines. Oh, that's what I was saying before as well. So yeah, this is a model of an early 24B and not a late one. So currently the ones that are flying in the US airspace have to be fitted with hush kits because they're running older turbojets. So if they're not fitted with hush kits, then they can't actually operate in the contiguous 48 states. So yeah, that's something of interest to everybody if you are a pilot, if you are looking at following them. So yeah, I'm not sure why they are modeled with the hush kits. It's the technical issue. But yeah, there you go. Anyway, alright, so on that note, we're going to probably depart here, and we will pick up again once we are on approach into Telluride. Alrighty, so we've started our descent into Telluride, so we're pretty much running it almost throttles idle. Bump the throttles up a little bit actually as we're descending down from our cruise altitude down to runway altitude. So it's an interesting actually approach into Telluride because you've got to go through you don't have to go through the valleys down here, but the ILS isn't a straight in ILS, it's actually offset, so you do have to sort of stick flight in the last little bit. But as we start our descent though, we do need to check our fuel a little bit. So because as I mentioned before, of course, and I did want to highlight actually some of the idiosyncrasies of the fuel system in this aircraft. So you may notice down here that there's a thing that says fuselage tank transfer, empty or full. So for this particular flight, I had nothing in the fuselage tank, but the fuselage tank doesn't actually feed the engines at all in this LearJet. So what it does instead is that the center tank, the fuselage tank, actually feeds the wing tanks, and the wing tanks feed the engines. Design decision, don't know why, it just is what it is, but it is actually modeled accurately in this, so you can be wary that if you sort of find yourself, oh, I've got this fuel tank filled, but you run out of fuel because you didn't transfer the fuel from the center tank into the wing tanks. Now I of course did this flight because I knew it was a fairly short flight, I didn't fly with that in there, but we have used up the fuel in our tip tanks, so that's all fine, so we don't have to worry about dumping the fuel for our approach as we land, because as I said, is against the the standard operations to actually land with any fuel, or a large amount of fuel in the tip tanks. And what's interesting as well is that it still has, like, you don't drain all the fuel, like you don't use all the fuel in there. That's kind of cool and interesting, because there's always a little bit of fuel sloshing around the bottom of tanks, even when you're trying to use them all. Anyway, so that's that. We've done our safety check there. We're in our descent. As I said, we're about to come over the outer, not the outer marker, but the sort of outer nav beacon, the ETL VOR. We're about to fly over that, and then we're going to be starting our turn towards finals. The autopilot's like most of this one, I think. And then I'll take over once we're a bit closer and runway's almost in sight. Nice bank over the Colorado mountains there. Spoils out, bring the speed down a little. We can pop out our first lot of flaps. Currently a little to the right of track, we should be drifting onto that shortly. Gear out. Landing lights on. So unlike the 35 series, which had landing lights built into the tip tanks, the 24 had them built onto the landing gear. Right. Disarm that autopilot, I think. There we are, so we got Happy's in sight over there on the plateau. Okay, autopilot off. Slow that descent rate. Track, and as I said, this is where it sort of shows that we're on course, but as you can sort of just make out now that the runway is slightly not quite there, so we're just going to adjust our heading a little and not swing it too far over. Flaps in. 4 miles the threshold, 4.5 miles the threshold. Again, I just love the LearJet, it's just so docile. So we can see there that the Force TV CDI is showing that we're slightly to the left of track, but that's fine, that's, we know that for this approach. Alright. 5-notch flaps. Little above the glide slope. Over to the Pappies. Power off a little.
Sync rate. Sync rate.
And it should.
Too low.
Throttle idle.
Too low.
Spoilers out. Little to the right of centre line, but that's it. Alright, there we go. And as I said, stops just about on a dime. Didn't even have to kick the reverse thrusters in. Alright, as we've cleaned up and as we taxi into stop here, ourselves parked, so we're able to shut down. Really is a great airport. I'd love to actually fly into here in real life as well. Don't know which one would be more fun, this or Aspen. I'm not sure. They're both kind of awesome. All right, so what we might do is tuck around the other side of these BizJets, I think, and park ourselves in front of the Telluride terminal, shall we? I think that sounds like a good idea. Probably not a proper parking space, but you know what? We'll make one. Got a VIP on board, of course, as always. Alright. Let's turn around here. And there we go. Okay. So, parking brake is set. Alright. Throttle's idle. Aircraft cleaned up. Landing lights off. Okay, and jet pumps off. Generators 2 off. Okay, inverters 2 off. Hydraulic pumps down. Strobes, navs, beacon light off, and we'll do all our heats now off. There we go. Okay, looking good, and going off, and battery right and prime off. Every generator is winding down, and we'll open up the doors for the passengers, and we will let our passengers get out, and we will turn on the park system. Okay, alright. Still sweeping that thing. Okay, alright. So, final thoughts. What do I think? Well, look, I'll be honest. They've done Lionheart Creations have done a really awesome job of what I think is one of the most fun aircraft, fun business jets out there, like in real life, and they've made an amazingly awesome job of it in bringing it to the simulated world. I'll be honest, I didn't really try the extra realism features. I enjoyed the ones that are there. Like, I think the systems are modeled really well. The textures, the flight dynamics are great. It feels like a LearJet, because LearJet is a bucket ton of fun. Every pilot that I've talked to that's flown the real thing have all said the same thing. They are a bucket ton of fun to fly. And I think this really captures that, and that's what I really love about that, is that it captures that feeling, that sense of joy and fun of flying. And it also does it without any of this glass cockpit technology. So if you want to challenge and want to be able to do things the old-fashioned way, you can. This is very much an aircraft for you, but it does still have that fallback. You can sort of just use a GPS, route via GPS nav if you want to. So it's a good option for a lot of people with a lot of systems. I don't really have a lot of bugbears with it. The only one I have is that there is a weird feature or a weird thing about it where the battery drains. Even if you shut everything down, including turn the batteries off and have nothing draining the battery, the aircraft, if you leave it sitting on the ramp long enough, even just 15 minutes, it will actually drain the batteries. So you'll need something like FSU IPC or to reload the aircraft if you want to reload it. So if you want to refresh the battery. So that's probably the only real bugbear that I found with it, and it was really annoying. I think that's really the only sort of issue I found. There was another one, but I ended up with reverse thrusters, but I believe that was to do with my controllers. It wasn't the airfoil of the aircraft. So really, as I said, the only one I found was just the battery. There seems to be something mysteriously draining the battery that you can't seem to turn off. No idea what it is, but that's a minor thing. For most people, it probably won't be an issue for you. Just have reload aircraft, hotkeyed or something, and you should be fine. Otherwise, as I said, a really great rendition of the aircraft. I think the Lionheart Creations has done a superb job, especially updating it for prepared V4, bringing it all up to 64-bit as well. So great work to the team there. Alright, well that does round out my review for this one. If you do want to pick up your copy of this one, it is available either direct from Lionheart Creations or from your favourite flight sim retailer. I do want to say thank you very much to the team at Lionheart Creations for providing me with a review copy of this aircraft. Thank you very much. And as always, folks, that does wrap up the review now. Don't forget, as always, to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed these videos and want to see more. And of course, as always, you can catch up with me and all the things I'm up to between videos by finding me on Facebook and on Twitter. Just search NovaWing24. Alright folks, thanks very much for watching. Take care, safe skies to all, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.